It's D-U-E-U tell. I see you by this point, you're reading my mind. It's time for football. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, man. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, yeah.
Welcome to Football Game Plan's NFL All-32 show. I am Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and we are now entering week 2 of the NFL season. What a great way to kick off the season last week with week 1 and how we ended week 1 with that Ravens-Raiders matchup. But I'm going to tell you right now, week 2 sets up to be just as exciting as the opening week of the season. And we have a great matchup kicking off Thursday Night Football down in our nation's capital as the Washington football team play host to the New York Giants. The New York Giants played a solid game against the Denver Broncos last weekend up until the crucial Daniel Jones fumble, which derailed any comeback hopes. I thought the defense was very opportunistic and made Denver work for everything that they earned. And what the Giants defense needs is to be rewarded for their play out there on the field by an offense that can punch the ball into the end zone. I would expect Saquon Barkley to be Saquon Barkley by about week 4. Until then, it'll be on the shoulders of Daniel Jones, who showed some rapport with the receivers throughout the game, but he must protect the football better if they want to win. For Washington, Taylor Heinicke gets to start for the injured Ryan Fitzpatrick, and it may be a blessing in disguise, quite honestly, as Heinicke is both younger and a bit more athletic than Ryan Fitzpatrick, which means there's an ability for him to create plays off script, just like he did in that playoff game. The team seems to really rally around Heinicke and will need him to play his best against this Giants defense. Now, defensively for Washington, we will see if they can force Daniel Jones to hold the ball long, move off his initial target, and create some turnovers. This defense hasn't been able to slow down the Daniel Jones-led offense so far in his young career. They will be looking to buck that trend tonight. I do like the Giants in this ball game. Look for a defensive tug-of-war with touchdowns being at a premium, but Big Blue will be able to hit Pater one more time than Washington in order to get the very crucial divisional win down in D.C. Now let's take a look at some of the other games in the early window slate, the 1 o'clock window, and we'll start in the Windy City where the Bears play host to the Cincinnati Bengals. Very impressive week 1 performance from the Bengals on both sides of the ball, quite honestly. It was good to see both Joe Burrow and wide receiver Jamar Chase recapture that chemistry that they had back at LSU. It was also good to see the Bengals defense come up with some key stops in the game as well, and I would expect that pressure that we saw get to Kirk Cousins a few times be able to get to Andy Dalton and affect the passing game. Now, Chicago really needs to figure out their quarterback situation. Andy Dalton wasn't terrible against the Rams by no means stretch of the imagination. He just didn't elevate the offense enough in order for them to win. Now, what was impressive to see was David Montgomery, who hit the ground running, pun intended, going over 100 yards against that Rams defense. The Bears' offensive line, I thought, definitely stepped up in terms of creating opportunities for him to do so. Defensively, it'll be up to their secondary to communicate significantly better this week to avoid giving up those big plays deep down the field. I do like Cincinnati in this ball game. The Bengals play with great balance and good complementary football to get the win versus the Vikings, and I see that being more of a trend and not an anomaly against an Andy Dalton-led Bears offense. So I wonder if we'll see more Justin Fields this week or even next week as a starter if they lose this game. The Houston Texans travel to Cleveland to take on the Browns, and what a debut in week 1 for head coach David Culley of the Houston Texans, getting his first win against the Jacksonville Jaguars. But what was also impressive was the play from quarterback Tyrod Taylor. He and Brandon Cooks connected many times during that game for chunk play after chunk play. Defensively, we saw a group turn the ball over multiple times, giving their offense many chances at bat. Now, this week, we'll learn a lot about their ability to stop the run as the Browns come in with one of the best rushing offenses in the NFL. Cleveland probably should have beaten Kansas City last weekend, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that they come into this game against Houston and not let last week's loss become this week's defeat. I like what I saw for the most part from a rebuilt defense, and their ability to get home, so to speak, will be ever so crucial as Tyrod Taylor is yet another quarterback that can escape, buy time, and find big plays down the field. I'm taking the Browns in this ball game. Too much balance on offense, and I like how their defense can affect the pocket. I would also expect them to try to bracket Brandon Cooks, taking him away from Taylor and forcing him to feed the ball to other options, which they have favorable matchups. Really good matchup here between the Los Angeles Rams and Indianapolis Colts. Matthew Stafford's debut went about as perfect as you'd want it to go. Awesome start to the season for him against the Chicago Bears, as that Rams offense was as multiple and as explosive as we've known it to be under Sean McVay. Defensively, the matchup to focus on will be their defensive line against that Colts offensive front. Last week, the Rams gave up over 100 yards on the ground, something they hadn't done at all last season. And if that happens this week against Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines and company, it could be a very long day in Naptown. Conversely, on the other side of the field to Matt Stafford, Carson Wentz's debut didn't go according to plan, as he was just okay in the passing game and also turned the ball over with a fumble. He has to be able to quicken up his clock in the pocket. Otherwise, that Rams pass rush will find him to be a sitting duck back there under center. The Colts defense, especially at the second level, will have to really be locked in on both ends, as the Rams do a great job of attacking the edges in the run game and also in the intermediate passing windows. I feel like this is a must-win game for the Colts already in week 2, so look for a valiant effort by Indy. I actually like them in this spot here in a close one, so I'm taking the Colts to pull off the upset. The Miami Dolphins play their second consecutive AFC East game as they host the Buffalo Bills, and for Buffalo, quarterback Josh Allen is probably chomping at the bit to get back out there on the field, as he left a lot of plays out there against the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially deeper down the field. In this game, the Dolphins will force him to get rid of the football quickly, so it'll be up to Allen to be able to connect on those free throws that we talked about all last season that he routinely and consistently hit last year. It was a solid debut for Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa and his trusted rookie wideout Jalen Waddle, as the two connected for a touchdown and a victory over New England. Now the challenge here will be the Dolphins pass rush, and can they keep Josh Allen contained within that pocket and not allow him to escape out the back door and extend plays. What a huge matchup this early in the season for both teams, as the Dolphins are looking to get a 2-game leg up on the rest of the AFC East. I think they'll be game for sure, but the Buffalo Bills defensive line should make things very tough for Tagovailoa and crew. I'm taking Buffalo. Another AFC East matchup this week as the Patriots and Jets meet up in the Meadowlands. The Patriots had their chances to knock off the Dolphins last weekend, but a late turnover sealed their fate. Ball security will be paramount in this game against a young Jets team that's looking for a spark. You have to be happy with Mac Jones' performance last week, as he was both efficient and he helped keep the offense on pace. He's going to have to play even faster this week, as Jets head coach Robert Saleh will look to frustrate the rookie early on. The Jets will need much better play from an offensive line that just couldn't get out of its own way and get its feet on solid ground against the Panthers, and they'll have to do it without their star left tackle Mekhi Becton. And while the rookie Zach Wilson showed a lot of fight last week, overcoming some adversity and playing some solid ball down the stretch of the game, he's going to have much better protection from either the run game or from the offensive line, preferably both. This is a tough matchup here for Gang Green. I do like New England to get the win on the road. We'll take a quick commercial break and be back with more Football Game Plan's NFL All-32 show.
Then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, yeah.
Welcome back to Football Game Plan's NFL All-32 show. Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Be sure to follow me on all of my social media accounts, and also follow our Football Game Plan analyst Chris James at CJ Florida9, Gene Clemens at Gene Clemens, Brandon Howard at B Howard _81, Teron Davenport at T Davenport _NFL. All great football analysts that you want to keep tabs on. But let's get back to some games this week, and we'll go out to the city of brotherly love, where the Philadelphia Eagles, coming off of that beatdown of the Atlanta Falcons, play host to the San Francisco 49ers. Love the matchup here between the 49ers and Eagles. Both teams are coming off of impressive Week 1 victories. Let's start with the 49ers and how well they ran the football against the Lions. I would be willing to bet that they will try to exploit the matchup between their run game and those linebackers of Philadelphia, and I feel like the Eagles did just an okay job versus the run versus the Atlanta Falcons. And this team, San Francisco I'm talking about, poses a much bigger threat. Now, on the defensive side of the football, how aggressive will they try to be against a quarterback in Jalen Hurts that can hurt you in a multitude of ways, one of them being taken off and running if they send extra? Now, on the Eagles side, the offense looked fluid and in control against the Falcons, and I like that they play that way from start to finish. Offensive line play will be put to the test this week against San Francisco, and we'll see how well they're able to handle that downward pressure consistently. Now, defensively, it's all about alignment, assignment, and execution. If they struggle to stop the run early, that play-action passing game will be what ultimately does them in. But I'm still taking the Eagles in this game Jalen Hurts has something to his game that will always give his team a chance to win. I see him being the biggest equalizer on a football field. Another strong AFC matchup here this weekend between Las Vegas and Pittsburgh. The Raiders showed tremendous grit Monday night against the Ravens, proving that they can go toe-to-toe with the AFC's best and also beat them. Derek Carr was a bit up and down early, but was able to lock in late in the game and get the job done. He's going to have to beat that pressure once again this week, as the Steelers do not let up at all at any point during the game. And I'm more interested to see how they have success running the football against this defense. Pittsburgh was able to scratch and claw their way to victory versus the Buffalo Bills, needing all three phases to win: offense, defense, and special teams. Ben Roethlisberger was a bit off, but he hit some key passes throughout the day to extend drives and also score the ball. I would expect to see more Najee Harris involvement against Vegas, as the run game could have success against this Raiders front. Pass protection will be vital as well if you want to keep it 100, and I'm taking the Steelers in this game. The Raiders are a solid team, but I feel as though Pittsburgh has a more stable situation defensively to slow down any Raider momentum built up over last week. So this will be another close game, but I like the Steelers. The New Orleans Saints head to Carolina to take on the Panthers, both teams coming off of impressive victories last weekend. Now, quarterback Jameis Winston played fantastic ball against the Packers, throwing 5 touchdown passes with just under 200 yards throwing the football. But it was the efficiency in which he operated that was impressive. Now, the defense dominated as well, especially in the run game, which will be key against the Carolina Panthers, who have one of the league's best, arguably, in Christian McCaffrey. For Carolina in this ballgame, the youthful exuberance displayed on the field against the Jets was great to see. This is a young football team with a lot of athleticism and talent, and the question will be, can they keep it going moving forward? Quarterback Sam Darnold was steady last weekend and will be looked upon to avoid those costly mistakes against a very opportunistic Saints defense. And if the Saints are able to keep McCaffrey in check, it'll be up to Darnold in that passing game to help carry this offense. I do like New Orleans in this one. The Saints defense, especially up front, will be the biggest challenger to a Carolina victory on Sunday. One challenge, I expect them to win. Jacksonville heads home to host the Denver Broncos this week, and Denver's offense under Teddy Bridgewater was the most efficient we've seen from Denver in quite some time. Numerous long, sustained drives against the Giants, who have a solid defense, was a big reason why they got the win. Bridgewater is an extension of the coaching staff out there on the field, always getting his guys in the right position and in the right spot to make plays. I would expect their defense to play with a little bit more consistency this time around, as the Giants found some gaps in the intermediate area of their passing game. Jacksonville flashed some potential last weekend against the Texans, but it's mainly going to come down to whether or not rookie quarterback Trevor Lawrence continues to make strides every week. Now, cutting down on the turnovers and putting your defense in a bad spot is the first order of business. He made some good throws versus the Texans, and now you want to see him stack positive games on top of one another. You want to see him start the game how he finished it. Tough matchup this week for the Jaguars. I'm taking the Broncos on the road to get the win. Minnesota will be looking to get its first victory of the season as they travel to the desert to take on the Arizona Cardinals. They played a good game, quite honestly, against Cincinnati. They just waited too late to kick it into high gear. The offense will have to rely on their quick game, and that's both in the run game and with their passing attack, as this Cardinals defense can really swarm to the quarterback and also to the ball carrier. Arizona got off to a great start against the Tennessee Titans. Chandler Jones finished with 5 sacks, but overall, that defense was just flat out balling. They shut down the run. They turned the ball over. They just played excellent team defense from start to finish. Offensively speaking, Kyler Murray did a great job creating off script, and is that flair for the dramatic and his ability that'll give them an edge in this ball game. I do like the Cardinals to get the job done, moving their record to 2-0 on the season. We'll take another break and be back with more Football Game Plan's NFL All-32 show. Let me tell you something, boy. Let me learn you right quick. You give these NFL coaches a full off season to figure out this forward pass thing, they'll stop it. It's gonna make a nice whistle.
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, a rock, we're going to rock around the clock, midnight, the glad rags on. Join me, hun, have some fun. When the clock strikes one, we're going to rock around the clock tonight. We're going to rock, 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 till bro.
I tell you what, you give these NFL head coaches a full offseason to figure this black athlete thing out, they'll stop it. Well, let me tell you something. You give these NFL defensive coaches, offensive coaches a full offseason to figure this whole blitz thing out, they'll stop it. Can't be. Nah, this whole Barry Sanders thing not gonna work out. You give an NFL defensive coordinator a full offseason to figure him out, he won't last. Welcome back to Football Game Plan's NFL All-32. I am Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. And man, we're just going to keep this thing rolling right along and get back to some more previews in the late window. And we'll start in Tampa, where the Buccaneers play host to their division rival, the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons travel to Tampa to take on the Buccaneers, and it's going to be a process for the Falcons as they're coming off of a loss to the Eagles. In that loss, we saw some concerns with their pass protection, and that's not what you want to hear, as you're facing one of the best pass rushing defenses in the NFL. However, there were some seeds of success in the run game initially, but I don't know how successful that's going to be against this particular defense. Now, on the defensive side for Atlanta, it's going to be key for them to generate pressure. They couldn't get to Jalen Hurts last week and now face Tom Brady, who does a really good job in beating pressure in his own right. Now, for the Buccaneers, they've got the extended break, having played on Thursday night, and honestly, they looked as good as on offense as they did during the playoffs. Defensively, with the secondary being a bit thin heading into this ball game, it'll be interesting to see how they cover, how they pressure, and who steps up on the back end to make plays. I do like the Bucs here, as I don't trust the Falcons' offensive line to keep Matt Ryan upright enough for them to have any sustainable success offensively. I really like this matchup in week 2 between the Dallas Cowboys and Los Angeles Chargers. The Cowboys offense did more than enough to win last weekend, just came up a bit short in the end. But what it did show the rest of the league is way more important. They showed that, number one, Dak Prescott is back, and number two, they can still be highly productive on offense, even more productive to win a game without Ezekiel Elliott thriving on the ground. Now, Elliott was an integral part to what we saw last weekend, to what the offense did against Tampa Bay, because of his blocking ability, which helped Dak thrive in the passing game. In this matchup against the Chargers, I feel like we could see much more balance offensively. One, because the matchup dictates it, and two, they get all-pro guard Zach Barton back in the fold. On the defensive side, will they be able to get pressure on Justin Herbert? The Chargers' offensive line played rather well against the stellar Washington football team defensive front, so it'll be up to Dan Quinn and company to get his defense to take it up a notch, especially from a coverage perspective, to frustrate Herbert in their passing attack. For the Chargers in this game, they were able to fight through the inconsistent run game and rely on the right arm of Justin Herbert to get the victory. And like I said earlier, their ability to play a solid game along the line of scrimmage was just so pleasant to see. I would expect the Chargers to attack Dallas on the perimeter, as they have a lot of favorable matchups in this passing game. Defensively, will they be able to slow down the ground game coming from Dallas? One has to figure that's where the Cowboys will try to get their offense started in this particular matchup. Another thing, it's a big step up in weight class in terms of quarterback play. This week they face Dak Prescott, who is a monster, and they'll have to be on their game, especially at the intermediate level of the field. I do like the Cowboys in this ball game. Love what I saw last week, and I don't think it was an anomaly at all. This team will be a good one for the long haul and should be able to go on the road and get the win. After welcoming in a team in Arizona from the West Coast, the Titans have to make that trip out to the Pacific Northwest this week to take on Seattle. And where do we start with the Titans after what we saw last weekend? How about we start up front with their offensive line play? That's where the Titans want to hang their hats, as it ties directly to their ability to run the football with Derrick Henry and allow for Ryan Tannehill to operate off play action. None of that happened last weekend because they just got completely dominated up front. They lost that battle. Things don't get any easier in this ball game, as the Seahawks are another strong point of attack team, and we'll see if it was a scheme thing or a personnel thing as they look to bounce back against the Seahawks. Now, Seattle made light work of the Indianapolis Colts. We saw them stymie the Colts run game and limit Carson Wentz's effectiveness in the passing game. So defensively, they are right where they need to be to start the season. On the offensive side, the deep passing game for the Seahawks is in midseason form, and outside of Russell Wilson throwing the best deep ball in the game, the receivers all have the ability to get deep down the field and track the ball rather well and convert on those opportunities. While it won't be a complete repeat up front for Tennessee in this game, the outcome will remain the same, as I like Seattle to win. You want to talk about two teams who played highly entertaining matchups that came down to the wire? Look no further than Kansas City and Baltimore. The Chiefs needed all 60 minutes to knock off the Browns and got help from their offense, their defense, and their special teams to do so. What will be interesting to see in this game from a defensive perspective is how will they attack a Ravens offensive line that struggled mightily against the Las Vegas Raiders on Monday night. Now, this could be the get-right game for that Chiefs pass rush. For Baltimore, what a tough way to lose a game like they did, but at the end of the day, they kind of earned it with the way their offensive line played all game. Now, granted, despite their struggles, Lamar Jackson got them in position to what looked to be the game-winning points, so credit the offensive line on that last series, which brings me to the defensive side of football. An already thin secondary will have to be on its game against Patrick Mahomes and their vaunted passing attack. So it'll be interesting to see how quickly they can galvanize on that side of the ball and finally get over this KC Boogerman that has gotten the best of them over the last 3 years. I just don't see it happening this week. I'm taking Kansas City. And finally, we have an NFC North matchup here on Monday Night Football between the Detroit Lions and Green Bay Packers. The Lions gave a valiant effort last week against San Francisco, but they just got it into gear a little bit too late for them to make the comeback. Offensively speaking, they will have to be much more explosive in the passing game, but this is what to be expected from a Jared Goff passing attack, and part of the reason why he's not in Los Angeles anymore. Their ability to push the ball deeper down the field just won't happen. So it'll put more pressure on their run game and their short, quick passing game that'll require guys to make a play. Now, Green Bay got blasted last week against the New Orleans Saints and have to be licking their chops to get this one going. Their offensive line looked a bit out of whack last week and will need to have a bounce back performance against Detroit. Now, defensively, I would expect them to be able to get after Goff, and it'll have to be a play to run on the way to the quarterback type of approach as they look to get back on the winning track. I do like Green Bay in this ball game, and this will be the true testament on where they are psychologically as a football team, because I tell you what, Detroit won't just lay down and give up. They're going to fight them each and every play for the entire game. So we'll learn a lot about Green Bay after this one. So that's it for this week's edition of Football Game Plan's NFL All-32 show. I am Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Be sure to follow me on all of my social media accounts. Don't forget to check out and subscribe to the Football Game Plan Network located at youtube.com/footballgameplan. Also subscribe on iTunes to Football Game Plan Podcast, and be sure to leave us a 5-star rating.
It's EU till I see you by this point. You're reading my mind. It's time for football. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it. Let's do it. We gon' make this thing official. You heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, man. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it. Let's do it. We gon' make this thing official. You heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, yeah.